specific items. And I think that was the question that was asked. So, not platitudes, but specific. And some of these things that will have an effect right away. They won't increase the budget, but they'll free up the people that are out there looking for work. One is redefine the independent contractor law to make it easier for people to freelance. You can't do that today. And it kills companies because they can't hire people as consultants. They have to bring them on as a full-time employee, which drives up the cost. So what it does is it suspends companies. It puts people that have valuable experience on the bench, and they're suspended. Nothing can be done. That's a real reform that I think anybody would get behind. Okay, number two, a moratorium on healthcare mandates. I call for a 3-year moratorium. It'll give companies a chance to plan and overall look at their situation. That's a kick in the stomach when you meet with your healthcare insurance consultant at the beginning of the year. The third thing is reform eligibility requirements for unemployment insurance. We have one of the most lopsided unemployment insurance program in the country, and more healthcare options for people. That would drive down the cost when you increase the competition for healthcare products in this Commonwealth. Those are real things. Those aren't just talking about, platitudes. Those are specific items, and I take those directly from my private sector experience. I've got a lot more. They're also on my website, but I want to just highlight those. Thank you.
I am being a little lax with time, partly because I think you had a complete statement that should be heard by the voters, and I will give Mr. Adams another minute to finish up what he was saying.
Thank you. Just briefly, a lot of the items that my opponent just spoke about, I've proposed, I've co-sponsored, and I've fought for directly on Beacon Hill, working with Republicans and Democrats. Make no mistake, the costs are very, very high in the private sector. I've heard overwhelmingly from business leaders in the community as I've met with them. One of only 8 state representatives statewide who's actually met with the private sector and held an open hearing in order to hear and heed their concerns. As we've done that, we've been able to get a grasp of the things that are affecting them. And, I question my opponent's his commitment to supporting these seemingly Republican issues, being that he's pulled a Democrat ballot more frequently than Republican. How can we depend on someone to fight for the issues that this district needs, these conservative issues that are pro-jobs, pro-growth, when he's been voting with them?
Thank you. Now we'll move on to a public sector question. Much has been reported lately about the massive liabilities faced by both the state and local governments in the area of contractual post-employment benefits, or sometimes called OPEB, other post-employment benefits. What suggestions do you have for how the state government can handle this problem on the state level? And Mr. Vispoli, that is yours first.
Sure. The OPEB phenomenon is certainly not unique to the town of Massachusetts or even around the country. It stems from very, very, I would say, liberal contracts over the years that stack up on you. It's a pay-as-you-go system. In Andover, what we're doing is we're one of 4 or 5 communities in the state that's actually put together a trust fund and are funding it. And as a result, we got our AAA bond rating back. But it's a serious problem. I mean, it's been reduced a little bit with healthcare reform, and I think that will, the cost reduction, the right kind of cost reduction, not the kind that was just passed, that actually increased cost, will lower that. It's a pay-as-you-go system that is, it's definitely out of kilter. And from a state perspective, there's a couple of ways you can attack that. One is to reduce the cost and provide more options and take the decisions for healthcare and put them in the doctor and the patient's hands, which would reduce cost. As a selectman, I see it. As somebody that's a private sector person, I see it. As a father, I see it. And these are concerns, and this is one of the reasons I'm running for the office. I think there's a great opportunity to turn the ship around, and it's going to take a forceful person that has the experience, and that's what I bring to the table. I don't need to meet with business leaders to understand it, although I have. I'm very involved in the technology councils in the state. I don't need to sit and have meetings to understand firsthand what these issues are. And that's the fundamental difference here, is the experience, especially when you're going to go and from an electability perspective, that's why I think I'm the one that's more electable in this race. For that very reason, you got to go back and take polls and meet with people to find out what's going on.
I think we will give Mr. Adams.
Yeah, well,
is that a minute and a half or 2 minutes?
Let's go back a second to the question of the outrageous state spending on Beacon Hill. Well, that's something that I've been fighting. What does that mean? Well, you have mandates upon mandates, regulations upon regulations, which are acting as a harbinger to private sector job growth, acting as a harbinger to the growth of the private sector. These are the kinds of things that are making it very difficult for people to want to hire in Massachusetts. We've been tackling those as a new Republican caucus, which has doubled in size. We've been tackling a lot of those unfunded mandates being passed down to communities. And my opponent hasn't really voiced any opposition to the debt and to the budgets that he supported over 10 years. Yet, in just 2 years, I've supported the reining in of spending. I've been sometimes a lone voice on Beacon Hill against the spending that's absolutely out of control. It's in the transportation-related budgets. It's in the overall budget. It's in the bundling of amendments. It's absolutely everywhere in state government. And we've been fighting this firsthand. My experience is on Beacon Hill the last couple of years has been working to build coalitions to rein in the spending, to support issues that people actually care about, and to stop the outrageous spending. We're supporting things like making sure that community priorities are funded instead of Deval Patrick's 2,000 state employees over the last 2 years. That's what's dragging on the budget. That's what leads to higher taxes. That's what leads to higher debt. These are the things that'll continue.
And before I allow you rebuttal, I will point out that the question is, what suggestions do you have to deal with OPEB at the state level? Mr. Vispoli.
I just want to just comment on one statement that was made regarding the work that's been done in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, we've actually dropped as a state. 2 years ago, we were number 6 in the survey as far as business-friendly states. And just a month ago, we were ranked number 28. So, fight's not working. And I believe it's because we don't have enough private sector people on Beacon Hill. This is not an ideological, abstract situation. This is somebody to walk in that has been in the shoes of a private sector person that's been a business leader, and I have.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Adams.
Again, tackling the spending is so important. You're not going to get that done unless you have more Republicans. There are a lot of people on Beacon Hill who have been voting for the crazy spending, who are private sector guys. The vast majority of them are Democrats also. The problem, again, is what you have in my opponent, is somebody who more frequently votes with the Democrats than with the Republicans. We can't depend on someone who acts like them and looks like them. You know what you get with me, I'm a real conservative, and somebody who will fight for the issues that are most important when it comes to spending, taxation, regulation. Again, you know what you get with me, not Democrat light.
Thank you,
get
sir.
someone who's conservative who will fight for your issues.
I think we'll move on to the next topic, which is healthcare. Do you think the Massachusetts healthcare reform is working? And that's the extent of the question, and I know I don't need to encourage you to only give us a yes or no answer. Mr. Adams, that is yours first.
Yeah. Well, I think it's abundantly clear that in terms of cost control, it's not working. The system we have right now, with a mandate that a lot of people can't afford, and a system that prioritizes a lot of people who we don't know where they even are, that are legal immigrants. I hear time and again people that feel like they are not getting the care that they need or that they deserve. I've put forward a plan that would reduce costs and keep a good quality of care that we're known for in Massachusetts. I've written pretty regular op-eds in the Andover Townsman, which you can check out on my website as well, which I posted. I talk about what we can do to bring down costs, talk a little bit about increasing competition, reducing barriers for competition in order to allow health and insurance providers from out of state in order to come into Massachusetts and provide a good price. Also, we need to make sure that we're supporting good hospitals and good physicians and rewarding them for the good work that they do. And right now, the state system does not reward them adequately, and we're loading more patients, we're front-loading more patients, and asking them to cover more people and then paying them less. The state system doesn't work, and I've put forward a plan that would help to change that.
Thank you. Same amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. My wife is an emergency room nurse, and I live with hearing about emergency rooms. The Romney Care promised to reduce the cost of emergency room department for primary care the opposite has happened. In the state of Massachusetts, it's very hard to find a primary care physician since they're leaving the state. We're educating them and they're leaving the state. We have to find a way to keep them in the state. That's a fundamental problem with the way the system was set up and the way it doesn't work. There's no accountability for using these expensive resources. The most expensive resources when somebody goes to the emergency room for care. And it's a complete lack of education, lack of a program to keep doctors here, and do we educate them to keep the doctor and the patient relationship sacred and not have the government step in. So the system is not working. It's the opposite has happened. We need to find a way to keep these physicians here, and whether it's some type of forgiveness of their medical loans or something else, there has to be an incentive for people, the physicians, to stay in the state. You hear about it over and over. In Andover, we lost a top-tier orthopedic surgery practice. I saw it firsthand. These are one of the top surgical groups in the state, and we lost them to Salem, New Hampshire. And in talking to these folks firsthand, I can see the advantage. And it's a shame, but I think the first thing we've got to do is look at this whole phenomenon of using the emergency room as the primary care physician outlet. That's what's happening today.
Thank you. As a follow-up, do you approve of any or all of the parts of the federal health care reform? And Mr. Vispoli, that's yours first.
You're talking about the Obamacare?
If you wish to call it that.
Okay,
please.
okay. Well, I think clearly the cost of that program is going to paralyze us. It's a job-killing program. At every place you look at it, whether it's medical device taxes, which Massachusetts is a leader in medical device construction. Okay, they talk about medical devices and they label anything to do with anything you use or anything. I'll give you a crazy example. Reform Care bill labels a toothbrush as a medical device. There'll be a tax on that. So that approach, clearly was not well thought out. 2,000 pages, and the statement was made. We have to pass it so that we can read it. And I think fundamentally that was a huge flaw in that particular program. And unless we find a way to reform the reform, we're all going to see that that's a job-killing program.
Okay. Mr. Adams?
I don't think we should just fund a reform. We should repeal the federal health care law. I hope they do that. I hope we have President Mitt Romney in a couple of months to help initiate that. But look, what's happening in Massachusetts is you have a parallel to Obamacare. This is full of fees and fines and taxes and mandates that are unaffordable for average income American families. It's already happening in Massachusetts. I was one of 3 votes against this most recent cost containment health care bill. It came out of the legislature because it was more of the same. Instead of fundamentally reforming our healthcare system using free market reforms which have proven to work in other states, instead we got more of the same: more fees, fines, taxes, less access to specialized care, which is what many people will face. And again, we're front-loading people who will be receiving subsidized care because they can't afford it on their own. So unless we fundamentally revisit how we're offering healthcare in this state, I put forward a bunch of those reforms. Things aren't going to fundamentally change. So I hope it is repealed.
Thank you. Another question related to healthcare. If Paul Ryan's proposal to cut back Medicaid is put in place, do you think Massachusetts should handle the decrease in funding as in the plan by increasing state funding for the program, cutting back services, or both?
Well, I guess I disagree with the premise of your question that Paul Ryan's plan is cutting Medicare by, what was it you said?
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Proposed to cut back Medicaid. Do you think Massachusetts should handle the decrease?
I mean, the federal takeover of healthcare is going to cut, which is Obamacare is going to cut $750 billion off Medicare. That's the last time I checked. But I'm concerned mostly with how that affects Massachusetts. What's going to happen? That's going to cut services for those who really need it in this state. I've dealt with dozens of people in my district who have called me concerned that a lot of their services have been cut and that they won't continue to receive them. We're very concerned about, if they do need some level subsidy, that's going to continue. There are some needy people out there who need that. But most importantly, it's going to make healthcare even more expensive, reduce the quality, increase the cost. And these are the things that are already a reality. So I don't understand why we need a federal takeover of healthcare, which would disproportionately impact Massachusetts because of the large share of money that we receive to care for patients in our state. It's very, very damaging, and it's troubling. And another reason why I've put forward the plan that I have to control health costs from a private sector perspective.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vispoli.
As a father of four and one child that's married, and watching my kids grow up, I worry about the entire system. It concerns me as a father. And as I say, my wife is in the healthcare system as an emergency room nurse. If the health plan is implemented as discussed, it will create havoc at the state level. And some of the options you talk about, clearly people are going to suggest those. We're going to have to reform the entire program. It's a mess, and it's a fundamental problem, I think, with the Obamacare program. So it's a big problem. Cost reduction, as I mentioned before, some of the things as far as primary care physicians, keeping doctors in the state, keeping the patient-doctor relationship core and how medical services get delivered are key in that.
Okay, thank you. Next question. The Republican Party is a minority at the Massachusetts State House. Describe ways in which you think you can operate more effectively as a member of the minority party than your opponent. Mr. Vispoli.
Sure. Great question. I think, they say there's no monopoly in good ideas, and we see this in the business world all the time. As a business person, we only have the ability to sell our ideas, and they have to be something that's got either return on investment, it's going to reduce costs, it's going to increase your market share. There's fundamental issues that have to be decided, and I see this every day. Again, no monopoly on good ideas. When you bring a good idea to the table, and I think we've seen Senator Scott Brown be able to be effective as a U.S. senator this way, and that is be able to sell your ideas based on a return, based on an overall objective, based on a solution. And I think somebody from the private sector who's used to dealing in that environment every day. I'm not a professional politician. I'm not somebody that is trying to be a professional politician. I believe that that's really how you become effective. And you can see over time how different people, whether it's freshman rep Sean O'Connell down on the South Shore, has tackled the EBT reform, and she was a freshman rep and has done a great job in that. And she's been able to sell an idea, and it was bipartisan. And I think that's the way you get things done in a one-party system. And you have to operate like that. I'm on whether it's board of selectmen or board of directors, you have to work and build consensus amongst the people you serve with. It's critical in the Senate when you have 40, there's only, we're hoping there's going to be 5, probably 10 Republican senators. I think that's key. I think it's a skill, it's a real-life skill that I bring to the table as a business leader that I deal with every day that my opponent just does not have that type of experience.
Same equal time. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
it's serving on Beacon Hill for the past 2 years. I've become a diplomat and negotiator of sorts. I've been working across the aisle successfully on legislation that has benefited this district directly. Regulatory reform, any new regulation that's proposed in the private sector has to have a cost, has to have a price tag attached to it. And by and large, when we were sitting around the table talking about that legislation and progressing that, that was one thing that jumped up the most to the people on the other side of the aisle, which was, wow, look what we're really doing in the private sector. Look what's really happening. And, this is the kind of stuff that I'll continue to fight for on Beacon Hill because I've been successful at it. The thing that the Democrats fear the most on Beacon Hill is balance. And they fear that they'll be the next one to lose their jobs. It provides an incredible amount of leverage. I've been able to benefit from that, of course, but working with everybody, that's something that where I excel as well. And I also sit on the most influential committees in the State House, on taxes and healthcare and energy committees, where I've had a good, strong role in a lot of major legislation that has been put forward, I've been able to sit at the table and opine on that. That's what a Republican gets to do. Is you sit at the table on every major piece of legislation that goes through it, and I'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Another party question. The Tea Party is a strong component of the Republican Party. Which, if any, of your values align with those of the Tea Party, and which, if any, do not? Mr. Adams.
Well, you know what my values are. You know, I'm a conservative. I'm a social, fiscal, and economic conservative. You know, I'm not ashamed of that. But my plan for the Merrimack Valley, I think, reflects my values. It reflects the values of the people who I represent now and who I wish to represent. Reining in taxes, reining in the spending, and supporting a good climate for the private sector to continue to grow. I've put forward specific ideas in order to progress that agenda, and I would love to be able to continue to serve the people in that capacity. I'll always be faithful. I'll always be a friend to the people of the district.
Thank you. Mr. Vispoli.
I think if you look at what some of the items that the Tea Party talks about, they talk about not having career politicians. They talk about less government control. They talk about less spending, and they talk about citizen legislators. These are people that come out of the private sector, that come in, they give the service to their state, to their community, to the government, and then they go back to their roles. And I think that's a fundamental. Those are some fundamental tenets that I think we all could agree with. And that is, the way the system was set up, it wasn't for somebody to do this as a career. It was to bring people in from their different occupations and come in and serve their time to make their state or community, government, a better place and better serve the people. And I think, again, those are tenets that I think any party could agree with. As somebody that's in the private sector, somebody that has a family, somebody that's worried about the future for their children, that's why I'm in this race. And I think that's critical. So whether it's a Tea Party label or a conservative label, it's what's going to be best, what's the environment that's going to be best, it's going to leave our kids a better system than we have now. Right now, we are falling the wrong way. When we talk about the last 2 years going from number 6 to number 28 in business-friendly climate, that affects opportunity for everybody. It doesn't matter what town you come from. It doesn't matter what your occupation is. That's a big problem that we need to wrestle with. That's why I'm in the race.
Thank you.
Well, there's only one career politician sitting at this table, and it's the guy who's been on the Board of Selectmen for 10 years and served on every board and commission for the last 30 years or so. Look, you know, this is a cause. You know what you get with me. This is a cause. It's a conservative cause. You know my values, and you know what I'm going to fight for you on Beacon Hill for. And that's how we're going to be able to get things done and turn the state around. Not by somebody who has pulled the Democrat ballot more frequently than a Republican one, who acts and who votes like them, but by somebody who you know who you get, and who will fight for the conservative causes that you believe in. And that's what I'll continue to do as your state senator.
Thank you.
Paul, again, that's intellectually dishonest statement. Just like your denial of being fined at our first radio debate. Just like your endorsement of Scott Brown that you said you had that back in January, the Brown Committee asked you to take it off your website. You know, you list your profession on the state website as a legislator. That's what you list your profession as. I have 25 years in the private sector. I'm proud of my community service, my volunteerism to help the town of D-Andover. I'm also proud of my service coaching my children. I'm proud of my volunteer work for raising money for different causes. And so I think let's not be intellectually dishonest here and throw barbs. Let's be honest. Let's talk about the issues.
I think we can stop there. Now I'm going to give you one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements. So this question is related to the I-95 interchange. So it's a very specific question and asks for a specific answer. Both of you indicate on your websites your support for the proposed I-93 interchange at Lowell Junction as an infrastructure improvement that could bring more jobs to the district. You've both held public office while the planning of for the interchange has proceeded. What have you personally done while in office to advance this project? Please don't use this as your response time telling us how important the project is. Tell us what you actually did. Mr. Adams.
Well, I've listed that project on on my website because businesses that are located in the area have come to me and said that they need. It would help them to grow the economy, grow the jobs, right here in this district. It could be one of the the most successful projects in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of job growth. I've met with Richard Davey, State Transportation Secretary. I've met with him 3 or 4 times throughout my terms as state rep. Met with him all over the district about various projects, and have also explained to him how important it is for this district and how businesses in this area want it. I've also continued to meet with leaders in the legislature on the Transportation Committee in order to help them understand how important it is to the area. I've invited them up here in order to take a tour of the area and see how important it is. It's not too often that you have reps from other areas that are willing to come here outside of their district, outside of their constituency to take a look, and it's something that we've definitely chatted about as well, and we'll continue to do that and make it a top priority as I have up to this point.
Thank you. Mr. Vispoli?
Yeah, as a selectman, when I first became a selectman, this was an issue that I spotted right away as an opportunity. It was sitting there with some of the other towns talking about it. What we did is I led and convinced the rest of our board, our town manager, that we needed to put a task force together. We put a task force together, people from different segments of the area of the community. Out of that, we formed a tri-town task force. This is something that I'm very proud of. The towns of Tewksbury, Wilmington, and Andover, and they met. They've been meeting on a regular basis. What we accomplished there was we accomplished an agreement on the zoning. We accomplished a major agreement on what the configuration was. This interchange has different faces to different communities and different needs. We were able to come together and agree on what this configuration would look like. Right now, the funding of this is the problem. It's stuck in the state in a review that I haven't seen come out. We've also talked to Davies. We've had the U.S. Secretary of Transportation who visited us. We just recently had our congressional delegation. It's a logjam right now at the federal level. We will get this project done ultimately because the need is there, not to touch on it, but that's what I've done. This has been a first-hand leadership role for me in the Merrimack Valley.
Thank you. Okay, now we are moving to opening statements. Gentlemen, you have 2 full minutes. Please do not go over. Mr. Adams, you can go first.
The closing statement.
Closing, yes.
Well, in this primary, Republicans have you have a very real choice. I'm a real Republican. I'm a fearless conservative. I've had success promoting a conservative agenda on Beacon Hill, of reining in outrageous spending, cutting taxes, reducing oppressive regulation in the private sector, and returning record levels of local aid. I also believe I'm the only candidate that can beat Barry Finegold. I won more votes than he did in most precincts where we overlap. I have proven competitiveness in the city of Lawrence. I received 42% in the precincts that I represent. Next Republican runner-up on the ballot was 10 points less, or I believe it was actually more than that. And I speak fluent Spanish. And no one will work harder to get elected to this and to beat Barry Finegold. If you want a Republican in the Senate, I think you have a very, very clear choice. Mr. Finegold is the one who doesn't share our values. He's the one that's voted for $500 million in local aid cuts, which have disproportionately impacted the Merrimack Valley, which led to 10,000, the sales tax increase of 25% led to 10,000 private sector job losses. And it's hurt your business and it's lowered your standard of living. And, folks, my desire is only to serve you. And you know what I'm about, always remain accessible and faithful to you. And I'm a friend of the people and always remain free of any influence of the special interests. So I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum and the chance to talk about this campaign.
Thank you. Mr. Vispoli.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. And thanks to the little son who's here streaming this live. For a Massachusetts Republican to win against an incumbent Democrat, our candidate has to have a squeaky clean record. Cannot be tainted. I'm that candidate. I'm the only candidate with real private sector experience, and we've talked about it tonight. It's not an abstract for me. I'm the only candidate with a very specific plan for transparency that I've called for in elections, as well as open meeting laws, open records law, signed on to a 13-point. I'm the only person here that has signed on for this transparency and ethics reform. The only one here at the table that signed on for that. And the only one here that understands how to grow business. small business. I've done it. It's not an abstract item for me. I'm a family man. I understand what it takes, what your children need, what the concerns are as a parent. And as a selectman, serving with honesty and integrity all along, I understand firsthand the impacts that bad decisions have on Beacon Hill for businesses, for families, and for town budgets. We need a candidate who's squeaky clean to beat the incumbent Democrat. I am that candidate. There's nothing out there that I've ever been fined for or tried to deceive the public on. I'm committed to fight to bring down the spending and reduce the tax burden, the sales tax and the income tax. I have a record of real leadership and accomplishments over the years that I've been an Andover Board of Selectmen. I'm proud of that service to my community, and I'm asking for your vote next Thursday, September 6th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we finish up this portion, I would like to thank both of our candidates for being willing to run and put yourself out there, and our timers for doing a great job over there. And thank you all. I will turn it over to Ann Cobley. The registered candidates will be up shortly, but Ann.
Thank you, Joanne. On the League's upcoming schedule, please watch for information starting